Hello and welcome back to the Death Row and Executions channel. My name is Paco Rivera and I do presentations on executions happening soon, including a story on what got the condemned death row inmate sentenced to death. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more death row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. Also check out my other channel here on YouTube called The Maximum Sentence, where I cover recent crimes and convictions. There will also be a link for that. Alabama death row inmate Charles Lee Burton Jr., who is now 70 years old, is scheduled to be executed in the coming weeks for a crime that was committed in 1991 when Burton was 36 years old. The crime was the robbery of an AutoZone store in Talladega, Alabama. Some have said that Charles Burton was not even inside the store when the robbery and murder occurred, and that Burton did not shoot the gun. Prosecutors that tried the case have conceded that. However, Burton was declared the ringleader of the events that took place that day, and they chose to seek the death penalty against him anyway. It just so happens that one of Burton's accomplices, the man who did the actual shooting inside the store, DeBruce, was also sentenced to death. However, that sentence was thrown out in 2014, and DeBruce was resentenced to life without parole, and he is no longer on death row. There were 6 men involved in the AutoZone robbery in Talladega, Arizona, that day on August 16, 1991. But the death sentence was only sought for the ringleader, Charles Burton, and the shooter, DeBruce. But like I was saying, now only Burton will be put to death for that crime. Of course, it is always tragic when anyone is killed during the robbery of a store, and we almost always think that it was someone working inside the store that was killed. However, in this case, it wasn't a store employee. It was a customer of the store, someone that had stopped into the store to buy something. That day, August 16th, 1991, Douglas Battle, who everyone knew as Doug. Before Doug arrived at the store, 6 men had arrived outside in 2 separate cars. According to reports, one of the cars was parked at a nearby car wash and they walked over. Prior to Doug's arrival, 5 men had already stormed into the AutoZone. DeBruce pointed a gun and ordered employees and customers to lie face down on the floor. According to reports, Charles Burton, the man on death row, had remained outside, or he was possibly in the restroom. According to the store manager who was working the register and would later provide a statement, Charles Burton had entered the store. He actually paid for some items and then asked to use the restroom. Moments later, there were the 5 men, one holding a gun, that had entered the store. The manager said he was then ordered to open a safe. That is when Doug Battle entered the store as a customer, while this crime was already in progress. Doug was 34 years old and he was a father. From reports, I know of at least one daughter named Tori, who was 9 years old when her father was killed. Moments later, Doug was ordered to lie face down on the floor along with everyone else. But he refused, or because of some disability, he wasn't able to. That's not very clear in the reports. Instead, he removed his wallet from his back pocket and threw the wallet at one of the perpetrators. Because he didn't get on the floor right away as ordered, DeBruce, holding the gun, came up behind Doug Battle and struck him in the back of the head, causing Doug to drop onto the floor. Now, Doug became angry and began yelling at the man who hit him. And both men, according to witnesses in the store that were held as hostages on the floor, they both got into a heated verbal argument. Here in this article, there is a mention of the incident where it reads, a customer named Doug Battle exchanged insults with one of the robbers named Derek DeBruce. I really hate doing any victim bashing, but that probably wasn't very smart on the part of Mr. Battle. Anyway, while that was happening, the perpetrators gathered wallets and personal belongings from everyone else and cleaned out the cash register and the safe. 4 of the 5 men left the store. It is not clear where Charles Burton was at this time, but he had also eventually made his way back outside to the car. Only Derek DeBruce remained inside the store. One of the other 5 perps would later say that he heard a gunshot, and then DeBruce exited the store and got in the car. While driving away, DeBruce admitted that he shot the man on the floor that he was arguing with, who we now know was Douglas Battle. According to the autopsy, Doug was shot once in the lower back, and the bullet pierced his chest. It's not clear exactly how investigators were led to the capture of the 6 men, but all were arrested. My experience from doing this is that when there are that many people involved in a crime, there is always a lot of talking that gets them into trouble. Anyway, the investigation concluded that Burton was the leader of the operation, that he had organized the robbery of the AutoZone store. The 6 men had gathered earlier that day with him to plan out the robbery. After the robbery, they had gathered at a home where they divided the stolen money. As I said before, both Charles Burton and Derek DeBruce were found guilty and both were sentenced to death, but DeBruce's sentence was later changed to life without parole. I found obituary information that shows DeBruce died in 2020. So my guess is that he died while still in prison. Willie Brantley pleaded guilty to murder, and in 1992, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Now 54 years old, he will be considered for parole in 2029, about 3 years from now. Dion Long pleaded guilty to felony murder and was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. It would appear that he has served his time in prison and has since been released. Long's current status is unknown. Now 60-year-old Andre Jones had pleaded guilty to felony murder and was sentenced to life imprisonment as a habitual offender. The 6th man, Luan McCants, who was the only minor, 16 years old at the time of the crime, testified against both Charles Burton and Derek DeBruce. He pleaded guilty to first-degree robbery and was sentenced to 25 years imprisonment. He also has since been released, and his current status is not known. Charles Lee Burton has since been confined to a wheelchair as the only way he can get around. He is required to wear a helmet because of frequent falls when he tries to get out of his wheelchair. Interestingly, Tori Battle, the daughter of the victim, who was only 9 years old when her father, Doug Battle, was killed, has said that she is opposed to this upcoming execution of Charles Burton. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more death row and upcoming execution stories, and so that you're alerted when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more death row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. My name is Paco Rivera. Thank you for watching. Take care, and bye for now.